Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 9.1 in-class review. Let's go ahead and get started. Now remember, if you have no idea what we're doing right now, you should go back and watch 9.1 notes. There were two videos, video 1 and video 2. All right, let's get started. So number 1, which relation represents a function? Defend your answer by using a complete sentence. Now, what I would do to figure out which one's a function is to use the vertical line test, okay? And what the vertical line test says is that you can draw a line, and if it touches only once, it's a function. But it touches more than once, it's not a function. So how many times did that line touch? Well, 1, 2, 3 times. Well, for sure that's not a function. Well, let's check. What about 2? Okay, it only touches the line once. I'm trying to find a point where it is false. And do I ever find one for graph number 2? No. So which one's the function? Yeah, graph number 2 is. So graph number 2 is a function. Why is it a function? Well, that is because it passes the vertical line test. Okay? All right, let's look at the next one. The next group says that we need to identify the domain and range. So number 2, now if you remember from number 2, or from yesterday, that number 2, we actually know the name of that graph. That is an exponential growth graph. So the first thing we need to know is the domain. The domain is from left to right. Is there a specific start or stop to it? No, okay. We don't know where it starts or where it stops, so that means it is all real numbers. Now let's look at the range. The range is up and down. Now I can see that up, it goes on forever. But what happens as it goes down? It looks like it gets closer and closer and closer, but does it ever touch 0? No, it doesn't. Okay, so for this one, we have to be a little bit more specific where why it doesn't touch 0, but it's always greater than 0. All right, let's look at number 3. What's our domain? Does it ever get past that point? No, it doesn't. Okay, so I see a specific start for it. And that is at the point -1, -2, -3. Does it equal -3? Yeah, but it's greater than or equal to -3. Now, what about the range? Well, it's going to keep going up and it's going to keep going down. I don't know where it begins or ends. So we would say that the range is all real numbers. Okay, and number 4. First thing, the domain from left to right. Is there a specific start or stop? Like, yeah, Mr. Grice, it's right there and right there. But remember, those arrows, as it goes up, it's going to go out wide too. So I don't know where it begins or ends. So that's when that domain is all real numbers. Now our range, let's take a look at it. It's going to go up, goes down, but then it shoots back up. Does it ever get lower than -1? No, but it doesn't go below that. So for this, we would say that the range that y has to be greater or equal to -1. And then you get to use those cool brackets. Okay? All right. Next one's 5 through 7 say that we need to identify the type of equation, whether it's linear, exponential, or quadratic, and then graph it. Then identify its domain and range. So let's look at number 5. As I zoom out a little bit, do we know the type of graph that number 5 is? Oh yeah, look right there. Look at what I highlighted. That's square. Okay, if it's a square, that means that the type of graph, this is a quadratic. Okay, so in a quadratic, I need to know what my vertex is. And since this is in vertex form, it's given to me. It's the opposite of -1 and then 3. So we go 2 numbers above and 2 numbers below. Hold on a second, my pen's acting weird. I'm gonna pause this. Okay, it's back to working. So our vertex is 1, 3. And then for the next couple numbers, we need to go 2 numbers lower and 2 numbers higher. And I'm actually going to pause the video and you guys are going to do the rest of that work. Okay, so why don't you figure out what the domain, or I'm sorry, figure out what the y points are and graph. And if you want to try the domain and range, feel free to do so. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and good luck. Okay, and that's what you should have gotten for your graph. Now let's talk about the domain and range. So the domain from left to right, do I know where it begins? I don't. So that's why it's going to be all real numbers for our domain. And then for our range, y, there's a specific starting point, okay? It's right there. Y can't be greater than that. Y is less than or equal to 3. Okay? All right, let's look at number 6. When we're doing a quadratic, or I'm sorry, this isn't a quadratic. What kind is this? Mr. Grice is losing his marbles over here. Okay, look to see where the x is. The x is upstairs. It's one of the exponents, so that means that this is a exponential graph. So when we're doing an exponential, we always have 0 in the middle, and we go 2 numbers below and 2 numbers higher. Okay? So when we're plugging this into our calculators, as I pull mine up right now, we would write 4 times 2 and then raise it to the -2nd power. And what do you get? 1. That's what I got. Let's do the other ones. So 4 times 2 raised to the -1st power. And we get 2. What happens with 0? I got 4. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a sec, and why don't you do number 1 and number 2? Did you get them yet? You should have gotten 8 and 16. So let's go ahead and plot the points that we can. At -2, we're at 1. At -1, we're at 2. At 0, we're at 4. At 1, we're at 5, 6, 7, 8. And at 2, we're at 16, and we can't graph that. Okay, but we can connect the dots that we've got. And there we go. So our domain, the x values, is there a specific start and stop to it? Nope. Okay, if you can't see it, then it's all real numbers. Now our range, it goes as high as, I don't know how high it goes, it keeps going. But there's a specific stopping point, okay? It never touches 0. So our range is that y is greater than 0. You might be like, Mr. Grice, I don't believe you. Okay, well, let's go 5 times 2 and just pick -10. That's not on our graph. Let's see, does it touch 0? It gets really close, but it doesn't do it. Well, Mr. Grice, I still don't believe you. All right, let's try -100. Ooh, guess what? I don't see zeros. And that's actually a number that's saying that there are so there are 29 zeros before here, but it's still not at 0, or it's not a negative number. Okay, so that's why it's greater than 0, it just never touches it. Okay, number 7. That is a quadratic exponential, or hopefully you're saying it. That is a linear. Now, when we're graphing linear equations, we need to know what our slope is, and our slope is -3/1, and the y-intercept is 0, -4. So we can go ahead and graph that. We start at -4, and I go down. Oh, I can't go down and to the right. So to make this negative, I'm going to go up and then to the left. So up 3, down 1. And if we do the exact opposite, like, oh yeah, it's down 3/1, it's down 3/1. So there we go. Connect the dots. And what's our domain? From left to right, there's no specific beginning or end. And then what about the range? Same thing. It goes as high as it wants and as low as it wants to. We do not see it, so it's all real numbers. Now, that's going to be the end of the video, but the back side of this was a review that we did in class. So you guys should try this on your own. It's exactly the same as what we just did, okay? Just different graphs and different problems. You can check with myself or Miss Carranza to see if you got the right answers, okay? And then your homework is the 9.1 practice B. If you have any questions, please come see Miss Carranza or myself. We would love to help you out. Otherwise, this is Mr. Grice signing off. Thanks for watching.